Morning. I'd like to, at this point, introduce Alexis Brumer, who's an IBM software engineer who is highly involved with the BEC's National Engineers Month program over the years.
Good morning. My name is Alexis Brumer. I work for IBM, and I have to tell you one of my favorite times of the year is National Engineers Month. Our site is, the energy is completely different. And it is totally enjoyable. One of my favorite things to do now as part of National Engineers Month is to recruit the skeptical engineer. The skeptical engineer is the one you go into their cube and they say, well, if a student is interested in math and science and technology or engineering, they'll just go into it. And I love that. That's my opening line. It's like, all right, this is the engineer I'm targeting this year. And I tell them my story. I tell them about, it was mentioned in the beginning that here in the Portland area, 66% of students graduate. Well, where I came from, it was lower than that. It was about 28% graduated that started as a freshman. I was not a lucky 28%. And it was one person who connected me with another person, who connected me with another person, and eventually led my path into engineering, into a field where I make a global impact every day with the job that I do. That is so exciting. And if it hadn't been for those people, I wouldn't have been here. The only computer I would have ever touched would have been a cash register. And that to me just still surprises me to this day. And I get them hooked just a little. And then I bribe them, normally with cookies. And I drag them into a classroom with me. And I show them that first touch that you can give a student. One of my favorites was I drug an engineer to the second grade classroom. It was an ESL class, which I discovered from the teacher meant that the students' intellect level or what they could do or produce didn't show on paper or standard writing or math skills, but they had the skills. It just didn't come out. And so she warned me a little bit about it. I found that class was actually pretty energetic, but it took me making it so that they were hands-on. So we started, I talked to them a little about, and this is second graders, right? I talked to them a little bit about the engineering process and what that means at the second grade level. And then we started our activity. The activity was very basic. It's what IBM calls the marble ramp. And literally you throw paper at them and scissors and tape and some bobby pins and paper clips or whatever. You throw it at them and you give them a map and you say your goal is to hit these targets on this map with the marble, and they each have a certain set of points. So here's your stuff. You want to get as many points as you can, and you're going to design your marble ramp. You're going to test it, because it's just like any engineering project. You design, you create, you test, you redesign, you retest until it's perfect. And they kind of look at you, and they're like, okay. And so you go around and you help them design the first marble ramp. In this class, it was hilarious because the first kids came up and literally all they had was a piece of paper that had just some enforcement on it, and they held it up at a certain level, and they dropped the first marble and the whole class is kind of looking, and the marble goes, it hits the 5 points, which was the big one, and everybody's like, yeah! But because they only held it up when they dropped the second one, it didn't hit the target. And this in the classroom is a priceless moment, right? Education in action. So you ask them, well, what can you do to make that marble ramp more consistent? And they think about it, and they look at you, and it's like, how would you hit the 5-point target every time? How would you know? And they're like, well, it has to be at the same height. Okay, we'll go work on that. And they would come, they'd go work on it. The next one would come, and, their marble ramp would be a little different, and it wouldn't quite hit the target, and you talk to them about it. And pretty soon, like, all the kids are at their tables, and every single one of them is, like, over the paper. And, cutting this and designing that, and what if we do this? But that ramp, was that the right height? Is that what we held it at? And they come back and they test again. And again, it was a perfect example because the first group comes back and they had measured the height that they needed to hit that target. And of course, they hit it 3 times, and that never happens in the classroom. And the whole class erupts like, yay! We got it! And pretty soon you're tallying the points on the board, and all the kids are really excited, and you go back and I asked the question at the end, so is there anybody in here who would consider a career in engineering or science or technology? And the whole class is like, yeah! And pretty soon one of the students stands up on his chair and he goes, engineering rocks! And everybody's like, yay! It was so much fun. The bell rang and the kids are still like screaming about their marble ramps. It was a great day, and it was engineering in action. And I tell you, the engineer that I drug with me to that class to volunteer, volunteers every year now for National Engineers Month. And it's programs like the BEC that allow us in the community to make touches to students that help us build, more than 66%, and encourages students to go in math and science and technology and builds our pipeline for the future, which is why it's so important for companies like IBM to volunteer. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your support.
Now we get to get some real excitement, and this is our director of teaching and learning at the Business Education Contact is Diane Smith, and Allie Marks is a language arts teacher at Forest Grove High School and BEC's Proficiency coach. They're going to talk to you about proficiency-based education. So, welcome.
Thank you, Mike, and good morning. After being an educator for 34 years, although my mom thinks I started in 4th grade being bossy on the playground, I think if I had another career choice right now, I'd go into engineering. It was really remarkable to hear that. I appreciate that, Alexis. Being an educator comes to some people naturally, and being an educator comes to others through training. It's that half full, half empty. It's that, is it a science? Is it an art? I want to spend just a few minutes today talking about 2 students whose lives will be different through proficiency-based teaching and learning. As a teacher, I had Sam in a class. Sam was a hard-working student. He attended very regularly. Sometimes I wished he'd take a day off. He was respectful towards me and all the other students in the class, and he really was never a discipline problem. Sam's track record was to take as many highly academic courses as he could, and while he struggled to understand and master the real content of the course, he always tried to turn in his very best neat work. He never had any projects that were messy. He never turned in anything that was late. He appeared to be very conscientious and very detail-oriented. Sam could have used some other interventions because as time went by and year after year passed in his high school career and Sam got to my class, Sam had a 4-point going. But underneath that 4-point was a struggling academic student. The A's did not reflect what Sam truly knew and could do in the academic realm. Just as all the other teachers before me and all of the colleagues in the building where I worked, I inadvertently, but with the best of intentions, included some soft skills in the evaluation of Sam's work. His attitude was always pleasant. That was worth something. He was a regular attender. He showed up for work on time. He played well in the sandbox, as some of the posters go. He was a team player. He generated ideas. He turned his work in on time. He would show up for work on time. But when it came down to whether he knew the academic content and he had the skills and knowledge related to whether it was my language arts class or a math class, those A's reflected a combination of what we would call soft skills and academics. As an employer, as a parent, as a community citizen, when you see the number of valedictorians that are graduating from our high schools, we tend to question whether in fact the school where I was teaching at West Albany truly has 24 highly academic and superior valedictorians in a class of about 200. That's a high percentage. And as a community, we need to question that, and we need to know that we're doing a better job. But Sam's not the only struggling student who, for some reason, through good practice and well intentions on my part, might have been misrepresented to you as a community. Stacy also had her grade misrepresented. Stacy found my class boring. She was made to sit through stuff she already knew because the calendar by which I ran my class told me that from September until that point, that's where Stacy belonged. Because she was made to sit through material because we didn't have a place to move her on, because it wasn't the time on the calendar to do that, because you needed to have the majority of students getting their work done in a classroom of 35 to 45 students for 88 minutes, Stacy shut down. I began to get less than her quality work. Stacy was aware that in order for her to get by, she just needed to get by. That meant learning how to play school. She could earn a D and still get credit. She could still be bored. She could still know all of the material. She could still be misplaced. But she wouldn't bug me. She'd stay off all of the other teacher radar screens in our building. She would fly under the radar at home as well with her parents and stay out of trouble. And Stacy was a student whose academic ability was wasted in a setting that was traditionally successful for most students. Stacy earned D's in a lot of her classes, and that D, to the public, to you as an employer, to a community college where she might apply, misrepresented her academic ability as well. When time is a barrier to learning for kids, when the environment in which we teach them disengages them and doesn't allow them to own and personalize that learning, we have disconnected youth. And we ask ourselves why 66%, as Tamara shared with you, might be the percentage of kids who are graduating. This kind of scenario is not unique to West Albany High School where I worked, and it's not unique to Oregon. It is not unique in the United States. But what we know from our national connections and from grant work that we've been fortunate enough to have funded is that when many of us operate under the premise that it's every student, every classroom, we now believe that that's achievable. With your help, with your partnerships, and with the belief that each one of us owns every student who walks out of our doors. This effort to reestablish classrooms around the United States and here in the state of Oregon in a proficiency world where you can believe that the targets are clear, that we give students a chance to get there, that the pathway is laid out for them and with well-supported dollars that are used wisely, and that when we report with them and with their parents what they know and can do, that is something that you can hang your hat on or go to the bank on. That's the kind of student that you want as your employee. You will know that what we report to you is not only a true picture of their academic knowledge and skills and the excitement and the potential of being the best engineer they possibly could be, but also the nurse, the caregiver, the teacher, the truck driver, the sanitation worker, whatever it is that you need them to do, we will report to you a purer picture of what they know and can do. We believe that over the last 18 months and the 1,385 teachers with whom we've been involved, we have in fact turned some classroom practices around. And there are math teachers in the southern part of the state. I had the good fortune of sitting with 5 of them at Hidden Valley High School who said, we will never go back to what we thought was good teaching because what we know now is better, our skill set is deeper, our students will graduate with a stronger set of tools to take to the employer, and they will know what it is that they know and can do with confidence to move ahead in their next job. Oregon's goal for college and career-ready students is down the pathway of proficiency for every classroom, and I invite you to join us on that mission. Thank you very much.